we want to pay especially attention to their crucial interaction to elections in European Union and to their crucial pressure to religious organization.
One thing that the disinformation campaign has done here in the United States is just really to sow chaos.
The Russian Orthodox Church and arose, which stands for Russian Association for the Centers of Religious and Sectarian Studies, they've been discrediting and persecuting religious minorities and civil society organizations both in Ukraine and Russia.
During the investigation, it was determined and documented that the Russian Orthodox Church is an element of the propaganda machine of the Russian Federation, alongside the mass media and intelligence services.
Today, I will tell you about. I have a very interesting topic that is directly related to our main investigations, which the Office of the Prosecutor General is conducting. This includes the formation of Russian religious structures aimed at the further occupation of both post-Soviet countries and European Union countries.
That's why we organized this event and why we wrote a report on Russian disinformation. I have background from election organizing and directly consulting work, and we work in Ukraine, we work in Georgia, we work in Bulgaria, and with European Parliament a lot. And on practical point of view, we see that Russian intervention to elections and that disinformation, it's just horrible and it's very effective. So we can read about that in, political science conferences. We can read in think tank reports about that. But I want to assure you that directly on practical point of view, their interaction is very effective. And they use narrative from Soviet Union to nowadays, the same narrative. I will talk a little bit about them. And this narrative still work. So that's why we, together with some other partners, our think tank Institute for Democracy and Development, which work this year 9 years in Ukraine and 3 years in United States, 2.5 years in the United States, and also Trainer Association of Ukraine. It's association of psychologists who work with facilitation, so they work a lot with communities. Of course, part of Ukrainian government, it's Department of Countering Crimes, Crimes Committed in Armed Conflicts of Office of Prosecutor General of Ukraine. So they from government side join us because they also fight a lot with disinformation and also with disinformation which connect with Russian war crimes. Right, and with disinformation in war, which very typical, and we see the same, for example, in Georgia, which they do. Also, Lingua Lexa, it's big non-profit of my dear friend Anya Vishnyakova. Anya worked many years with these issues, and she also consult United Nations on these issues and Warren Buffett foundations. So we start this discussion from disinformation, which was connected with Russian war crimes in Ukraine. And before, she worked a lot on Holocaust issues and anti-Semitism issues, so she understands also how it works. And we decide also to write more about these issues now. Voice of Crimea, it's investigation think tank, and they work a lot on investigation on Russian Orthodox Church. So they also our partners and co-authors today. Slovenian Certified Ethical Hackers Association, they also help in Austin technologies and like digital forensic. Lenta.ua, it's Ukrainian news website, and they our media partner together with Stop Corruption Media Center. And also with thanks to Center of Russian Studies, to Bogush Communication. It's also company of my friend Denis Bogush, who now consults Ukrainian government on disinformation. And of course, Global Policy Institute is think tank in Atlantic University. We wrote a document which you can scan on your place, right, or in email. You also get this almost 100 pages of report. So if we will see a structure of this report, we pay a lot of attention mainly to understand Russian narratives and like archetypes of these narratives. So generally, if Russia take, for example, a narrative about bio labs in Ukraine, which produce special viruses, and the United States pay for these viruses. It's one of narrative, but generally we also pay attention in our research that these narratives, they originally used from Soviet Union period and from Cold War period. And generally, as campaign manager, I can talk to you that generally it's of course a narrative from Torah, from Bible. It's narrative about like prosecutions and Egypt and all like illnesses as prosecution. So it's very deep archetypical narrative, which Russians, of course, also understand, and they use this main archetypic narrative, for example, in question of bio labs. Then, when COVID started, they and we discuss a lot this case with a forensic lab of Atlantic Council. I'm now also in their program, that they use the same narrative to, for example, show a photo from art flash mob to in Italy, to show that like all people in Europe, it's so bad that all people die on the street. And if you like old Austrian researcher, it's easy to you because you find like source of this picture and you said, no, it was flash mob about Holocaust, it wasn't about COVID, right? But generally, audience who really recipient of this information, like person from village who do like village work, or some people without high education, they just use this information because it's very archetypical. One more time, it's very archetypical in understanding. And as you know, and if you wrote a lot like of Kahneman's work and behavior economy, our reptilian brain always in some situation on searching dangerous situations. So Russians also understand this issue of behavior economy, and they use always like it's that virus which like potentially West used against us. And the same archetype they use, for example, in anti-LGBTQ propaganda, because on last elections in Georgia, we had this to report just yesterday, they use main issue that if you will vote for pro-European political forces in Georgia, all people will become LGBTQ community. And one more time, they use biblical story to prove like their position that only they super conservative and only they really believe in God, which we will discuss a lot, because they also said in second message that they have only Russian Orthodox Church and all other churches it's sects and just organization, not religious organization. So one more time, they use very deep archetype to show their like fake values. But of course we understand that it's fake values because one more time it's people who bombing kids' hospitals without no shame, right? And we today appreciate a lot of religious leaders, and I hope that we will pray together for all people who die from these war crimes, and we all people who believe in God, of course, understand that one testimony is not to kill, and Russia can't appeal to any religious issues on that, right? So one more time, archetypical issues on elections which they use. Also, they use pretty understandable tools of creating fake news. So it's mostly type of working with bots in internet, and they also use it in United States and of course in Georgia, in Moldova. It's and a lot in Western Europe, for example, on elections in Germany. I will give you some examples, like through bots and fake news websites, which called German News.com or like Deutsche News. So it looks like real website for person who not so attentive, but they put directly fake magazines there, and they, for example, put that Annalena Baerbock and Green Party want to take money from pensions and like retirement plan to give all this money to refugees, which obviously fake news. But one more time, mostly fake news was about Annalena Baerbock, who, you know, support Ukraine, and she represents also Green movement. But one more time, mostly this fake news, which based on, one more time, very archetypical understanding that when you feel bad in economy, you want to find somebody who guilty for that. And if before it was like Jewish people, you know, who, oh, they rich, so they guilty, right? So in Nazi Germany, now Russians said that, oh, it's Western capitalists who guilty in your bad economy situation. And of course, they use this fake news to, you know, criticize like pro-European, generally politicians, right, who very classical pro-European, and we guess in our report that they support, of course, in their disinformation campaign, Alternative for Germany and Sarah Wagner-Kneft political parties, which like far right and far left. So it's very interesting that you can find this information in our report. So my main message that today we will talk a lot about practical issues, what they talk, how they talk, and what tools they use. And in the end of this conference, we just, our aim not just share one more report about this issue in Washington, D.C., which a lot, so Rand Corporation do report on that, Atlantic Council do report on that, one more time projects which I take in part, Disinformation Lab, the Atlantic Council do everyday news about that. But we want to pay especially attention to their crucial interaction to elections in European Union and to their crucial pressure to religious organization. And these issues of crucial pressure to religious organizations, it will be main issue also on today's discussion, because it's like fresh view, and because one more time, Soviet Union and authoritarianism of Soviet Union was start from that, the Soviet Union will not believe in God, and go into synagogue, mosque, church, it's not right. And I can tell from my friends' experience that, for example, rabbis who bake matzah on Pesach, it's special like religious bread on Pesach for Jewish people, they go to jail for that. And now they do the same in Russia and on occupied territories, and we give a lot of examples, and today religious leaders will talk about that, because directly it's the same crime, and the same crime against like religious leaders as they do in war crimes, and how they manipulate that in press, because one more time they try to show very archetypical that it's only one right way to believe in God, which, of course, ridiculous idea and ridiculous idea for all people who believe in God and do charity and help Ukraine now because people suffering.